Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Conscious Marketer podcast. I'm Richard and also joined by Kylie, my co-host. Hi, Kylie.
Hey there.
And we're super excited today to bring you Nadja Eriksson, and she is a mystical brand strategist, copywriter, and story mentor. Hi, Nadja.
Hi there.
And I'll give you a quick bio of Nadja. She helps conscious leaders shape stories that seduce and sell so they can get paid to serve love. I love that. She's worked with hundreds of clients, and she's seen firsthand how her method, the Tantric Brand Storytelling, creates magic for making people feel connected to you, help you share your message, and also to join and enroll in your program. Nadja, maybe this is really interesting, Tantric Brand Storytelling. I don't think I've ever seen that combination of three words ever before. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of your backstory and share how you came to kind of move into this work that you're doing for people.
Yes, for sure. Well, first off, thank you. And Tantric Brand Storytelling is actually something I invented or came up with like this winter, just recently. So that's probably why you never heard about it before. But I can talk more about that later. I can start with my story. So I've always had a love for stories. So I studied literature and cinema studies at university. And then later I got more into the personal development, spirituality field. So I also took like a Zen coaching training while I was at uni. So that's actually also influenced by Almas. I know you like Almas, Richard. And the whole thing is about like Zen and like the diamond approach of like having these different essence qualities as part of our being and relaxing into that. So I was like working with that kind of coaching for many, many years. And I was also really getting into Tantra and had a teacher for many years. So I started working as a love, sex, and relationship coach, that combining these different modalities. And then I met my then husband. We moved to New York City because he got a job there. And I had an amazing time like speaking in front of like lots of women on stages about 7 different female orgasms and sharing all kinds of things, and it was awesome. But then on one dark December night, like he came home and he told me that he was let go by the startup he worked for because they got acquired and visit our visa was pulled. So we literally had like 2 weeks to gear up our studio apartment and kiss goodbye to our friends and leave and go back to Europe. So it was like obviously super traumatizing, and we were both like, oh my God, no. So we spent a while in Germany, and I was just trying to get back into the coaching thing, and I was so distraught and depressed from being like kicked out and leaving all my friends in New York. So I was just like, I just couldn't really get into it anymore. So then I met this plant medicine woman in Berlin, and she worked with Iboga, which is like really strong African root bark medicine. And I worked with that before, so I know how powerful it is. And my intention was to just like, you know, get back into the flow of my coaching business and like pick myself back up again. But after that weekend, where you're basically like lying on a mattress for like 48 hours and eating this like pulverized root bark, which is like having cinnamon in your mouth and you can't drink anything of it. Oh, it was horrible. So anyway, after that, I came out of it again, and then I had lost all interest in coaching. And suddenly I was just super fascinated by marketing and copywriting. And I was like, okay, I just couldn't even pick up any more coaching work. It was like, this is interesting. And I just followed that, you know, curiosity. And I found like people like Laura Belgray and like our copywriters that I found, well, they are really interesting and authentic. So I could really connect to what they were doing. And I was like, okay, clearly I'm supposed to do this now, because in the past, people had asked me, like, so I was also writing a blog for my town for teachers. So people had asked me, like, can you help me write this thing? And can you help me write my website? And I was like, yeah, sure. But, you know, I'm doing coaching mostly. So it was like, life had to really literally like bring me to my knees and tell me, no, you're supposed to be a writer. Quit the coaching.
That's super. I was just going to say that's super interesting. I've heard of a lot of different people coming out of kind of spiritual plant medicines, but very few have come out saying, I want to be a copywriter and like a brand storyteller. So that's really interesting. It must have been there underneath the surface that you knew it, or it helped you to see what was already there.
Definitely. exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I was already having like a curiosity about copywriting when we just got kicked out of New York. But then I just couldn't really connect with it, and that's what just felt like, I was just reading all these old school ads in the 1950s, and it's like it just felt like Gucci to me. Yeah, I just couldn't connect with it. I had this resistance. Then when I found more like women, contemporary copywriters that I found really cool, like Laura, Hailey, storytellers, and then I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. This is for me. And so I just needed a bit of a nudge.
I found myself having one successful campaign as a brand storyteller, and then everybody wanted my help, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so my method kind of happened on the fly of how I helped people. And so I'm super curious, how did you stumble into your own method? I know you mentioned cinema studies and things like that, but how did you figure out how to help people with this stuff?
Since I had this whole background in Tantra and coaching, I knew a lot about this whole world. And I also saw that a lot of my friends who was working with that, they were struggling with money and with their own marketing. And they all thought, marketing sucks and sales is sleazy. And they were all broke. And I had this one friend who I shared that I helped this drawing copywriting. And she was a little bit clairvoyant. And she said, and she was also a coach. And she said, I think you should help like coaches like me with their marketing, their website. And it just landed in me. I was like, yes. And then all the people who since then came to me, they were all like, intimacy coaches or embodiment coaches or Tantra teachers or all in that same field. And they all felt like, wow, you really get me, because you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. So it was easy to write in their voice and talk about what they talk about, because this is basically has been my whole life until that point. And it started changing. So yeah, and then just like, did some mentoring programs, and people helped me, those mentors helped me to distill my message and make it more and more precise. But from day one, it was pretty much clear who I was supposed to work with.
Maybe you can share some ideas. I know that, there are different types of copywriting, and, I know for myself, I can write certain types of copy for transformational industries, because that's kind of what I've done, like meditation and movement arts, and especially therapists. I'm really good with therapists. But I know that there are other copywriters that like focus on finance and selling other things. And it sounds like you've kind of mastered this little niche of relationships. And maybe you can share a little bit about how this Tantric Brand Storytelling came about, and like, how did you get that insight that was going to be the name, and kind of develop that?
So, I've always really been into storytelling, and then just been focusing more and more on that in my copywriting. Also, the more I dug into it, the more I got into it, storytelling. And then at some point, I think this winter, I was sitting in the bathtub, and I was just lying there. And then suddenly, these pieces connected, and I just somehow got this intuition to look up this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And it was just this intuition of I saw this picture of this cotton thread or something, and there was this fine silver thread that was weaved in that cotton thread, and it felt like that's the essence, or the truth, the teaching in the story, and it's spun into the story, weaving it into it. And I was like, well, Tantra means weaving, and sort of about merging spirituality with the world and physical. So then it just came all together somehow, and just was there, just was a download, more or less. Yeah, but that's the idea behind it, because I also had this frustration in the past when I've been reading all these spiritual books, that I would often forget the message or what it was all about. But then when I remember for example, David Deda's autobiographical novel Wild Nights, I'll never forget that story, or how Mykonos was shouting openness, love will suffer, it's just how can you forget that, Whereas Blue Truth, when you read it, it's just it's so deep and you can feel it in your body, but when you put it away, it's okay, what's it all about? So it feels when you really read the story, it's just it sticks, it's just you cannot get out of your system anymore. And I think I was looking for ways to help people who serve truth and love also to reach wider audience, or more mouths, or touch people in a more memorable way. So I thought hey, how can they bring that depth and a message into the world and actually make it stick, and help it even make it a tool, the story make it tool, the story tool for awakening. Because the idea of Tantric Brand Storytelling is that there is a transmission in the story, and that transmission is about an aspect of essence. And when people hear that and they absorb it, it kind of resonates in their own being and reminds them of their own essence qualities. Then it becomes like a vehicle for awakening.
Yeah, I love that. You kind of what you sent us is I help people to remember the divine by transmitting essence qualities that remind the reader of their true nature. So that's really beautiful. And if you didn't catch what she was saying before, she was saying the name Almas. I think it's Almas. So Almas's books are like, they're the kind of books that you read like a page or two, and then you have to kind of like put the book down for like a couple days. And he has a lot of books too. He's a voluminous writer. My understanding is it came from the Sufi tradition, and Sufis have a specific teaching on essence. I've kind of never worked directly with Almas, but consulted on a few projects. It sounds true with him, but I've never actually met him. But in my 20s, I used to read a lot of Almas because his words were like poetry. They were like transmissions for me, So and I have worked with David Data before, so that's for another time, another day. So he's his most famous book is The Way of the Superior Man, which is kind of like a cult classic among a lot of people. So yeah. So I think when we read stories and we read copy, we kind of know whether it's come from that place of essence. How do you help people to get more essence into their storytelling? Do you take them through a process where they meditate, or how do you? Because I think a lot of people are disconnected from that just as a society. Yeah. So my sense is a lot of the people that you work with are already connected to it, but how do you help them to bring that into more of their writing and more of their marketing?
Yes, of course. So, that's kind of where we're going full circle of my coaching education. Like, it's come back now because now I just started 3-month mentoring program that's basically guiding people deeper into their brand and the essence of their brand. But I also do that in shorter sessions because often people come to me and they want me to revise their website copy, but they're not really sure about their brand strategy. So that's when I started giving consulting around that also. And now more and more, so since last summer, I received the guidance to actually guide people do a more spiritual process. So I had this one woman from New York City. She's designing Sanskrit jewelry. She's amazing. She's been a yogini her whole life, and she's a Sanskrit teacher. And anyway, so we were talking about her brand and how she wants to present herself. And then I had this guide her into meditation so she can connect with her own essence and just receive the transmission directly, because I'm not here to tell her what to do, what's right for her, So I basically did a meditation with her where I guided her into connection with her own, what I call her big G, or her inner being. And then we basically asked the questions and received all the coaching from her herself. And she was like, okay, you can do like this and like this. Okay, cool. And afterwards, when she came out of the meditation, she was like, wow, your process is amazing. Then based on that, I wrote the copy for a new website, and yeah, she loved it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's, I don't know, you're kind of in the right place because our mastermind network is called The Source, and we just met here in Barcelona, Spain. And it's always interesting when you get a group of kind of marketing people, business people, coaches, therapists, that are also mystics. Everybody in our group is a mystic, a channel, or a healer. They all has bringing new technologies in, and it's quite an unusual group. I don't know another group like it out there. But what happens when you get two people together, it can be super powerful, especially somebody like you who can facilitate that transmission. But when you get a group of 15 people like that together, and you start to it's like the exponential energy collects. And it was interesting because the Barcelona event, everybody was getting all these insights and transmissions, and they're like, I'm so grateful for you. And I was like, well, I'm just, you guys are, you all are doing the work. I'm just kind of holding space for whatever's happening, and I can take no credit. I'll give Kylie credit because, you know, like she sets things up and does a good job. But I definitely am not going to take credit. It's like you just hold the space. But that in itself is really an important role. And I think like holding space and helping people to see their own truth it's one of the most powerful processes that you can facilitate for somebody, because then they own it, you know, then they have it themselves.
Exactly.
I'm super curious, like if you were to sit down with me and pull out my brand story, what would be the process that you would take me through?
Well, I think first of all, I would just ask you, like, tell me a story, and I would just listen to you and see what comes. And I think I would like guide you towards specific questions, you know, and ask deeper, bring out my inner coach, and like explore with you like more details, or can you tell me more about this? So what was that pivotal moment, or what happened to you before you started there? You know, like just get really, really curious, and then have you like dump it on me, tell me everything. And then I think I would probably like structure it for you later and write it in a cohesive storyline.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the simple things of just getting people to open up and tell their story, and then seeing where it flows through. Have you found that there's one or two specific types of stories that repeat themselves or come over with the people that you work with that are particularly important with how they market themselves or how they meet the world?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of stories that keeps coming back is when people have these like rock bottom moments and then they rise from there. Like I had one client, she was yogini, and she was stuck in this sexless marriage. And she ended up like masturbating on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m. because she didn't want to like wake her husband. In that moment, she was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I need to get out of this marriage. And today she's like a teacher of women's pleasure and tantra. And, you know, this story is obviously like just an amazing example of like, you know, how you can like be really in that mire and then just like, become like this empowered woman. So that was her rock bottom moment. And I think another person, like, she's like a voice coach. She's doing shamanic voice work, and she had a near-death experience. Like, she was in hospital because she didn't allow herself to sing. And then she saw herself being lifted out of that wheelchair, and she was like seeing herself from above, and it was like, oh my God, I'm like dying. And then she came back and she woke up and she realized, whoa, okay, I have to sing. If I'm not singing, I die. So yeah, these kind of really extreme stories of like things like that, often happening like that.
Given that, I'm super curious, like, where do you draw the line between vulnerability in a story and oversharing?
I think that's so individual and depends on person to person. I think when vulnerability is like called for, like, I welcome that. And I think then people can just decide themselves like how much detail they want to give. I think it depends on what their profession is, like what background they have and how naked they want to be with their clients and readers. You know, it's like really up to them. And, you know, I can help them and coach them on what balance feels right for them. But, you know, I just think it's an individual thing.
Well, I can tell you've had some coaching training because, like, I'm more of a consultant, so I'm always trying to find the right answer. And you're like, well, let the client decide for themselves, which is probably a better way, you know, definitely when you're coaching people and bringing out their brand storytelling. So what's next for you? How do you see your work evolving and developing in the future? Now that you've kind of discovered this life passion and like you're bringing it to the world, what's kind of unfolding for you in the moment?
Now I just wanted to ask you how you would do it, Richard. I was just so curious about, you said I'm a consultant, and I was waiting for, what are you going to say now about your approach? You just want to share, because I was like the clients inside, like how would you approach this?
Well, I mean, I came from the corporate world, and, you know, clients would pay us for solutions, right? And and then I worked in Asia, so it was, especially I worked in Hong Kong for many years. And so in the higher levels, when a client pays you, they just want the job done, you know? And so it's less about like coaxing it out of the client to become more of who they really are. and so when I started to coach, when I guess I became more of a coach consultant behind cameras. My initial method was to just help people to get on camera and teach more. And so I would ask them questions around teaching, but I kind of knew where I wanted to lead them. Does that make sense? I knew what would work for the marketing. So I would kind of lead the witness is what I guess is the term they say in the United States. They say lead the witness. Okay. And so if I wanted somebody's origin story, I would say, hey, tell me how you got into this. And I've been behind camera for a lot of big spiritual teachers. And if you can just kind of get somebody into a natural conversation, and if you know what the avatar wants, then you can kind of lead them down the path. But that's a little bit more directed. I will say, and you'll find this interesting, in my early days, people would be in transmission, especially spiritual teachers. And my marketing brain would be like, I need them to tell them to click the button or to like talk about the bonus. And I learned the hard way to recognize when somebody was sharing their essence and sharing from a deep place of love and heart. And I learned the hard way that if I interrupted that flow, it cut the stream off. Mm-hmm. And often it wasn't so easy to get that person back into the flow. And I have incidences that come to my mind, and for confidentiality, I won't say, but where I cut somebody's flow off, and then I had to like work for the next 10 minutes to get them back in flow, Mm-hmm. And then they were just angry with me, So so I learned the hard way. But I mean, like, we normally don't look at somebody on camera and go, is that person in channel and is that person in transmission? Yet when we're receiving the video, we actually do know, like there's part of ourselves that, when you're listening to Eckhart or you're listening to, whatever your spiritual teacher is, the Dalai Lama or Almas, when they're speaking from that deeper place, it's like there's this conduit for source and spirit is coming out of them. And often the formulas just don't matter at any point, because a lot of the teaching that's happening is non-local. It's not even happening through the words. It's happening through something where it's almost like a soul-to-soul connection. This is kind of a woo episode, but this is how I
get it.
So like when people are like, well, how did you make the big transformation for your mind to your heart? And I'm like, well, to be honest, I sat with this Tibetan Lama and this Taoist dude for like a night and something happened and they were chanting in some language that I didn't know, Tibetan, and it just happened. And I'm like, I was thinking just this week that it would be fun to learn the art of transmission, because we all transmit a little bit, but there's actually there's teachings in different spiritual traditions about how actually to do that. Yeah. But I think you can do that as a space holder. Like what the work that you're doing is you're helping people transmit their essence through their copy and things like this. It's a more refined, it's actually a more useful version for the real world. It's like a 3D version of this, which is good stuff, right?
I actually did a transmission training as part of my Tantric training. So
okay.
Yeah. And at one point, my teacher showed us like a short clip of Adida, and he was completely still, but he was like in deep space. He was just transmitting, and we could all see it in our bodies, like just that little video. He was just completely still, like no words, but everybody got like chills and everything because he felt through the video. It was so strong.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't know if it's such a hidden art, but it's a not so known art, because I think great pieces of artwork or sculpture or some music has it. That's why my running joke, which is probably not so it's not so funny, but I always say, oh, do you have the toenail of this guru or whatever, because it holds the transmission, that's my running joke, to just make fun of it all. But you can look at a picture of somebody that's in a deep meditative state and you're like, wow, what's happening with that person? And your mind can't really wrap around it, but you can kind of see it in the picture. That's why some of the sacred pictures are so important.
Yeah. Back to what Richard was saying earlier, what do you see as the future of your work? Where do you feel like you're going with all this?
I want to go deeper into this, coaching, transmission, getting people in touch with their own essence and really birthing their legacy brand based on like really deep connection with their essence and their source. So I'm just in the middle of launching a new 3-month mentorship program where I'm basically guiding people into the process around their brand and also incorporating these principles of like meditation and transmission. They can really create like a legacy brand that's completely 100% them, and not copied from anywhere else, really. That's what I'm excited about. And then also, a friend of mine and I wrote a book a couple of years ago, and that was actually also like a lot of transformation to basically just channeling information about female sexuality and spirituality. And we wrote a while back, and it's been like lying there in the closet for a few years, but I feel like it's time to bring it out now and probably self-publish it this year or next year.
That's amazing. And so, so you got some programs. I love this podcast because we can bring on people who are kind of like skirting the edge of spirituality and marketing and business. And, our thing in terms of the conscious marketing brand is to show how, getting your work on the market can be definitely a teaching and personal development process. But at the deepest levels, it's like you integrate spirituality with everything that you're doing, including your marketing and your business development. So if people want to work with you, how do they find out a little bit more about you? I know you have a website. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, it's my name, NadiaEriksson.com, and everything's on there. I got a course on copywriting you can purchase there. I also have like a course on self-love that's basically like meditations to connect with your higher self, your essence, get in touch with that part of you if you want to explore that. And then there's also like different ways to work with me. Like I mentioned, the 3-month mentorship program, and I also do like copy makeovers and bigger projects. So just check out my website and get in touch.
Okay, thank you, Nadja. And we'll also, if you are looking for the links and everything for her website, you can go to consciousmarketer.com/podcast, and we'll put all the links there and look for this episode. And if you're listening to this video on iTunes or Spotify and you want to go on and leave us a review, reviews are a big part of how the algorithm works so that we can get more listeners on board. We'd love to have that feedback. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today, Nadja. We really appreciate you and the work you're doing and for spending the time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Bye for now, and we'll see everybody on the next episode. Thank you.